and started another video. So, I was sitting on the side of my bed a few weeks ago, and I had just woke up that morning, and as soon as I woke up, sometimes early in the morning or over in the middle of the night, as soon as you open your eyes, the Lord is right there to feed you something. Like, I was waiting for you to wake up. Oh my goodness, I'm so glad you finally woke up. And I had an idea for a t-shirt, and I acknowledged that idea, and I acknowledged that it was a good idea. And the very next thing I felt was hesitation. It was the first time in my life I recognized it by its name. I think it's very important that we allow God to teach us to recognize things by their name. We call a lot of stuff fear, but sometimes I think fear doesn't come in until after the fact. But if we catch hesitation is the little booger that opens the door and says, fear, you can come in now. She's ready for you. I stopped her before she could even get up. So now you come in and you start talking, because the hesitation I felt right in that moment didn't say a word. Fear talks to you. The fear of rejection talks to you. It has a language. It has a script that it follows. Okay. Hesitation doesn't have to say anything. Hesitation just freezes you in a split second, right at the point of an excellent idea, an excellent strategy given to you directly from God. The first thing your flesh will do is hesitate. It's new, which means there's a risk involved. A risk of what? Failing, a risk of not being supported, a risk of saying it to the wrong person and getting discouraged, a risk of doing it and then not getting back what you thought or imagined you would get back in the time frame that you thought you would get back, or at all. Hesitation says all of that without speaking one word. And that's what I felt for the first time in my life just a few weeks ago, hesitation. So I wrote something motivational type, but for me it's not really motivational. It's more, I'm to the point, it's not motivational, and it may not even be necessarily inspirational, because both of those two feelings will pass. And once the moment of motivation passes, or the moment of you being inspired passes, you drift right back into what you were before you heard whatever you heard, to make you feel motivated in a moment. Motivated and inspired. Motivated and inspired. Those are really two emotions. So we're Christians. We don't live by our feelings, even the good ones. So we don't live by motivation, and we don't live by inspiration. We are motivated. But you know what? If you don't move in that moment of motivation, you ain't gonna do nothing. Because once it passes, whatever you were gonna do passes with it. If you don't move when you're inspired, right in the heat of that moment, you're not gonna move at all. Because once that feeling passes, you'll sit back down. You'll drift back into where you were before you heard whatever it was. And it's something about even going back to it, referring back to it, it's kind of like that first hit of crack, they say. The reason why people become hooked on crack after the very first hit is because no hit feels as good as the first one. So they keep using it, trying to recreate the first hit. That's what motivation and inspiration is. That's what I'm learning. That's why my whole life I have been motivated, I have been inspired, I have been lit up for moments of time, and never carried out what I meant to carry out when I felt inspired or motivated, because it was an emotion that eventually passed. It may pass from the moment you leave where you are to getting home. One particular event, years ago, I was still married. One of my nieces went back to school as an adult, married adult. And She went to college, back to college, and we attended her graduation. At her graduation, I was caught up in the moment of just her accomplishment. And I got inspired to go back to school so that I could have that moment that she was having in that moment. And I remember just kind of rushing up to her afterwards, and I said, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going back to school. It's been over 20 years, and I haven't seriously considered going to nobody. I ain't thinking about going to nobody's school. But in that moment, I was inspired. So from the time I rushed up to her, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going back to school. And maybe from that time to the time I got back to my car, or maybe the time I got back home, that inspired feeling was gone, along with my desire and declaration that I'm going back to school. So see, this is why we can't live by that. We can't live by those feelings, okay? And then I said something, and I got off on that, but that was needed to be said, because when I recognized that hesitation, I wrote something to teach. That's what it's really for. And I said, when you, the gist of what I said was, when you feel in that moment that you feel hesitation, like hesitation comes to you just before you take a step into something new. And when you feel that hesitation, you need to take that first step and stomp hesitation into the ground. Because hesitation, for many people and for me, represents a fear of success. For a lot of people, they have a fear of failure. But for me, my biggest fear wasn't failure, it was success. It was reaching success and then not being able to maintain it, not having the character or maturity to maintain it, getting up to a certain level, and then doing something publicly or saying something publicly that would take it all away from me. So it wasn't so much failure. I knew I had it in me to get to a certain level. God has showed me that I have what we like to call greatness inside of us. He had shown me the greatness. He had already shown me where I can go. My problem was, but what'll happen when I get there? And hesitation fed from that plate in my life. Now, in your life, it might feed from the opposite, afraid that you may fail to even reach that goal. I didn't have a problem with thinking that I could reach it. Something about the fact that God showed it to me, I knew I could do it. It was in me to do it. And the fact that he showed it to me answered, the messages in my head, answered a lot of things in me. But my view of myself personally, because of that, I wasn't sure that even if I got to where God was telling me I could go, that I would be able to stay there, that I would do something to flub it up. Okay, so I started to jot down things about hesitation. I said recently, hesitation is an enemy to your purpose. I heard a woman talking about hesitation, and she explained it, and it was like, it's so awesome how God will feed something into your spirit that helps you in a moment, and then just in case you think you're the only one, he'll let you come across somebody else who's saying the same thing and will give you even more insight to what he has shown you. Okay. And what she did, she explained, she broke it down even more, because I'm one of those people, I mull over things and I break them all the way down, because I know my job is to share what I learn. So if I'm going to share what I learned, then that means I got to teach you. So I can't just, you know what I'm saying? I got to teach you. So she said, hesitation sends a stress signal to your brain. Your body is built. Who built it? God. Your body is built to protect itself from anything that doesn't feel safe, that is anything that is different, anything that look like you getting ready to take a big chance or a big risk, your body automatically goes into a protect mode. That's hesitation. It's something new. Consider your comfort zone. I'll call it today your bubble. Your bubble is no bigger than you can reach with the tip of your finger. Your personal space. Anything outside of your personal space or anything coming into your personal space that's not familiar, you go into a protect mode. Hey, what you coming out? Oh, hey. So your body will do that. That's hesitation. And she talked about it's so simple as even if you're in a meeting at work and there are suggestions being requested and you have one, but the first thing you'll feel after you realize you're in a moment to share something that could be helpful to the team, the company, is hesitation. For many reasons. Maybe somebody else might take your idea and run with it. Maybe your boss might take your idea and make it his or her own and not give you credit for it. There's many reasons to be hesitant in a situation like that, and in a lot of other situations. Anywhere where there's something that you can share that could be a help, you do have to be careful not to be too loose with it too soon, because somebody can, with more resources than you and who can get something done quicker than you, instead of coming alongside of you and helping you make it come to pass, they will just take it and make it their own and steal it from you, and what you gonna do anyway. So understand that. I'm not criticizing that. We all feel that. But in situations where you have an assignment from God, along with your own goals and dreams, hesitation can kill it. Commit cold-blooded murder on your purpose and your personal goals and dreams for your life. Because those two are not necessarily the same. And so she said how our bodies are wired to hesitate before we do something new or step into new territory or take a risk of any kind. Starting a new business, starting a new job, applying for a job, anything that takes you outside of your comfort zone bubble. And when hesitation hits, it's in a millisecond. And it happens so quietly and so naturally and without words. I think we don't recognize it. But when that hesitation comes in, she said it sends a stress signal to your brain. And then your brain says, hey, what's going on? She's getting stressed. We're in trouble. Something's not right. She's not comfortable. She stopped. What's going on? Nobody move. And so hesitation in that way sends that signal to your brain, and your brain stops everything and says, we're not moving any further until we feel safe again. Problem with that. See, when people feel that, let me give you two sides to that. When people feel that hesitation, and then your brain goes into the mode to protect you from whatever danger or risk you just told it you were facing. People who feel that, before they take that step, before they make that move, they will wear you out with questions. Well, okay, now what about this? Okay, now what about that? Okay, now you said this, right? Okay, so, but let me ask you this. Okay, but what about this? They will wear you out with questions because they are trying to get as much information from you and as much comfort from you, as many answers from you as they can, to erase all of the discomfort, to erase all of the elements of risk. They don't want to take the risk. They want to ask enough questions, get enough answers, enough information to remove the risk in their minds. And then they'll feel comfortable moving forward. That's good and that's bad. We should make informed decisions. But even the Bible talks about counting up the cost before you go to war. I believe it's before you go to war. Or building a house. Anyway, you count up the cost before you take off running. So that's wisdom in doing that and handling business that way. But at the same time, it can be an enemy to you, because as Christians, if we remove all element of risk, all element of what if it doesn't, or it might not, or everything has to be lined up perfectly, if we wait for that, when do we ever get to walk by faith? We walk by faith and not by sight. So what I'm sharing with you now is what the Lord was revealing to me as I was walking without my headphones in, listening to all my favorite worship songs. Hesitation is the high blood pressure of purpose. Why do I call it the high blood pressure of purpose? High blood pressure is called the silent killer. People can have it for years, die of a stroke or a massive heart attack. Nobody knew they had high blood pressure. It's the silent killer. You can have high blood pressure for years and not have any outward symptoms. If you don't go to the doctor, you may never know that you had high blood pressure, and then your family will find out you had it maybe by how you died. So hesitation is a silent killer. And why again do I call it silent? Because hesitation can stop you dead in your tracks without saying a word to you. In a millisecond, in a moment, in the blinking of an eye, when you recognize a good idea, when you recognize some strategy, the very next feeling you'll have is hesitation. You'll feel that happen on the inside. That's your enemy. That is your enemy. I would say pay a little bit of respect to it, as far as it will keep you, the good side of it is that it will keep you from just bulldozing into something, especially when you got to spend money, especially when you got to sign contracts, things like that. Hesitation comes in handy to keep you from moving forward before you gather enough information, in instances where you need to gather more information. In the instance that the Lord revealed it to me, I didn't need to gather no information. I had already been given some information. I had already discovered how I could do what He gave me to do. But hesitation stopped me. Now, if I hadn't had any information, of course hesitation would work in my favor, because it would mean, okay, I can't just go run and do something. I gotta find out what's the best way to make it happen. You understand what I'm saying? So recognize where you are when you feel hesitation, because you're not going to ever not feel it. Anytime you step into something new, you're going to feel it. But then you need to do an assessment of where you are and recognize, is this hesitation breeding fear, or is it giving me an opportunity to gather information to make an informed decision about how to take the next step? Because you've got to take the next step. If hesitation comes and then it just erases all intention you have of taking the next step, okay, that's the one that needs to be stumped into the ground. But the one that says, okay, wait a minute, let me get my head on straight. Now, what are we trying to do? And do we know how we're going to do it? Okay, let's get that done first. Use it to your advantage that way. Other than that, it must be destroyed, because it's trying to destroy what you're trying to do. Okay, I think that's it. No, there was something else I wanted to share about that, because I was talking about how people will not move forward because they will, start asking questions and asking questions and asking questions. And many times, because they can't get enough answers to enough questions to remove the element of risk that they feel, they won't do anything. They won't even do something as simple as, I won't even say simple, because depending on your personality, if you're an introvert, to be an usher in church, that could be major for you. Do you know how many people come through the door that you got to look right in their face? If you're an introvert, if you're very shy, that's terrifying to you. But then the Lord might say, hey, I'm pulling you out of your bubble. I'm pulling you out of your comfort zone a little bit. So then that becomes a huge challenge to you. For somebody else, it might be, I don't want to be bothering nobody that much. Or I know that I'm not called to be an usher. I'm supposed to be over here doing this in the ministry. I'm not talking about outside. But if you can't do something inside your church family, where that's your extended family, where people love you and encourage you, if hesitation can stop you from doing something there, it'll stop you from doing anything outside of the church walls, in community, in society, in business. professionally, you ain't going nowhere. Okay, if you can't move beyond hesitation when you're amongst friends and family and people who are rooting for you and you know, there to encourage you and teaching you and mentoring you, pastoring you. If hesitation can stop you among those people, it ain't got to never worry about you doing anything outside of the church walls. And that's the whole point. Anything outside of your bubble reach, where as far as you can reach with the tip of your finger, that's your bubble, that's your comfort zone. Hesitation will not allow you, if you give in to it, if you allow it to rule you, it will not allow you to reach past your own bubble. That's what I wanted to share. I had to get it out, because if I waited till I got home, I wouldn't have been able to catch it while it was fresh. Yeah. So I'm starting to look distorted to myself because it's getting dark out here. Okay, that's all I wanted to say. Hesitation is the high blood pressure of purpose. It'll kill it without saying a word. See you in the book.